Oh boy, I think it's fair to say that the situation in Eastern Europe really isn't that good as of late.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
This as the Russians have just stepped away from that larger game as Vladimir Putin announced through his spokesperson that he does not agree to the temporary ceasefire that was proposed to them by the United States. What's going to be happening next, as a lot of people are expecting a major offensive by the Russians in the Sumy region, as now Vladimir Putin is donning a military uniform. This all signals more darker times ahead as the Europeans are up in arms, but not deciding to do anything themselves. Again, very complicated, very crazy situation, but the news just broke a few moments ago that Vladimir Putin officially says, I do not want the ceasefire. I want a long-term peace deal. What does he mean here? Why did he say that specifically? We'll tell you in just a little bit here. But again, the signs were all there yesterday. And I didn't want to say this because it's just very negative news. I was really hoping the deal would have been made here, but the Russians didn't agree to it because of a specific geopolitical situation that they see as a larger threat to them in the possible future that could backfire if they do. Now, seeing specifically Putin dress up like this in military uniform, go to the Kursk region. This is the Russian territory that was attacked by the Ukrainians, as the Western corporate media called this a brilliant move, a brilliant strategy, with the Ukrainians now invading Russian territory, as the Russians have recently had some significant gain. And according to Russian news reports, 90% of the occupation in Kursk has been already eliminated, if you believe those Russian news reports. As of course, during times of war, there's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of lies. There's a lot of disinformation. But I did see independently a lot of footage coming from the Kursk region showing specifically a lot of drones being utilized against the Ukrainians that are trying to kind of back away. There was also the implementation of a huge mega bomb that was dropped on what people believe to be the kind of Kursk headquarters here. But right now, you have Vladimir Putin in this very specific region telling his troops, telling his military, get all of them out as quickly as possible. As right now, a lot of people responded to this particular video footage with this military garb that Putin donned as, holy cow, the Ukrainians are, quote, effed. That's what one Twitter user said, specifically seeing this video footage, as the message is clear. Putin is ready for war, and he is commanding it, and he wants to be on the front lines of it. This as people were still waiting for him to potentially sign the ceasefire agreement, which he is not doing. Why isn't he doing this? Well, the words here matter. The Kremlin official said specifically this 30-day ceasefire plan is something that Russia is only interested in if there's going to be long-term resolutions to this conflict that will end it. Why? Well, I think the Russians understand that now, with the United States continuing military supplies, continuing to share intelligence with them, that the Ukrainians are, of course, going to be fighting alongside the United States as their proxy now. Again, say there's a ceasefire, the Ukrainians get to rearm, they get to relax, they get to move around their troops, they get to understand the situation a little bit more, and whether they're doing this openly with the United States or whether they're using the United States for a small temporary break here, we don't know, but it's fair to assume here that they're dealing with a lot of significant crises on their hands. Now, the Russians are too. But the Russians have far more manpower. They have far more resources. They have far more of a bigger military-industrial complex that they have activated and engaged that has shown to produce mortars at a faster, cheaper rate than NATO has. There could be a situation where the Ukrainians are looking like, listen, we'll just say yes, and we'll re-engage in 30 days from now when we are rested, more well-equipped, and we're able to find more of our Ukrainian men all over the Western world, and we're going to draft them in here, and we're going to get more mercenaries in here, and we're going to get more foreign fighters in here, and then we're all going to now re-engage Russia at this very specific time. That is the kind of thinking that we are hearing that the Russians are allegedly going through right now. And one reason why they see this, quote, short-term deal as useless, because it would take away the larger advantages that the Russians currently have on the battlefield, as clearly the Russian war machine is moving along. And when we look at the specific conflicts that are happening in the Kursk region and the Donbass region, all the reports are coming in that the Russians have a very slow, steady pace of making progress and taking more and more territory. Why would they stop that, only to potentially face a bigger backlash here that could turn the tide of this larger conflict? That is the thinking. Now, is that the right thinking? Is that the wrong thinking? I don't know. But Russia has given a list of demands now to the United States saying, hey, this is how we end it. This is our things. These are our issues that we are putting ultimatum on. And they are that there's going to be no NATO membership for Ukraine, no foreign troops in Ukraine, and the recognition of Russian control over 4 previous Ukrainian territories, including the Crimea and 4 other Ukrainian provinces here in the Donbass specific region. Now, this is right here, the territory, as you're seeing on this map here, that the Russians want as now their territory. They're claiming that these are Russian-speaking speakers that live in this territory. They are more aligned with Russia. Therefore, this territory, which also is rich in rare earth minerals, is theirs. Now, the Ukrainians are not going to be happy with that, and they're going to say, no, that's our territory. That was our country. We don't want to give it up, as, of course, this has been the larger battle that has been unfolding since 2014. There's been bullets and bombs flying. And before getting into all of that, we want to tell you about, and before going into the deeper dives of how this is going to unfold here, we want to tell you about thebestpoliticalshorts.com. It's one of the best ways to support this independent media organization. The best representation of war, I think, is perfectly depicted here in our t-shirt called The Reality of War that we have available to you, showing you a grand chessboard with a bunch of pawns and smaller pieces as the kings and queens dine and watch in full entertainment of the bloodlust and sacrifice that is being ritualistically purported and pushed on so many poor people. Anyway, not to be a bummer, but that shirt's really nice for, all the true anti-war people. It sucks because so many anti-war people flip-flop and they're like, oh, my guy's in charge, pro-war. Oh, my guy's not in charge, anti-war. I'm like, really? Why can't you just be anti-war the whole freaking time? We, as an independent media organization, we're anti-war no matter who's in power right now. We hope there's peace deals. And we have a lot of funny shirts that aren't as serious like the ones that I'm wearing right now. That reads microplastic-free huevos. Great one to wear at the nightclub. Great one to wear at any kind of outing where there's a bunch of nice ladies around. And you just kind of walk around like, hey, ladies, look at me. What's up? Whoa. Kind of wave your hair and like, you're right. What's up? Don't do that. Especially, don't do that. I'm just being silly. You want to find that shirt, you type in balls on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Link is down in the description. Go there right now and support this independent media network. Now, what's going to be happening next with this larger kind of theater of conflict? Well, you could expect the Russians to do an offensive. Where's that offensive probably going to be? It's probably going to be in the Sumy territory region, where the Russians are trying to defend territory that is the closest to Moscow. Now, the reason why they're probably going to be going after the Sumy territory is that they wanted a bigger kind of buffer zone here in this specific region that you're seeing unfold here. I suspect this would be the more kind of logical kind of explanation of what's going to be happening next, because if you look at the Ukrainians launching all of their attacks on Moscow, it's from this specific region. So if the Russians are going to make one last kind of final push here before they kind of acquiesce to a peace deal or a buffer zone or the ending of this conflict, I think it's going to be here in this territory that they previously held before during the beginning of their operations, during the start of this war, and then they kind of just receded back and they just kind of walked away from the territorial gains that they previously made beforehand. If you look at the territory that the Russians have now, again, a lot of people are asking, why don't they take all this territory and this territory and this territory? They're going after territory that they believe they have a claim to because of the ethnic kind of Russian-speaking population that is there. Some of them want to be a part of Russia, and again, this goes all the way back since 2014, even way before that, as Ukraine is a divided country. There's a lot of different dialects, a lot of different languages. Some people really love Europe. Some people really love Russia. Again, it's a very complicated situation, as we just got the breaking news that Trump's envoy is landing in Moscow, and they are going to be involved in high-level talks with Putin and the Russian government in order to negotiate this 30-day ceasefire deal. Now, the Russians want their guarantees. The Russians want their larger offensive. They want more territory. They're in a groove, and they don't want this conflict to start up where they get their butts kicked with a rearmament and a larger possibility of Ukraine to come back to this conflict stronger and better than they were beforehand. Now, the Russians are probably going to be sending more assault forces. This is going to be their kind of last kind of final push here, and then I would expect them to kind of sit at the negotiations table as relations between the United States and Europe are not the best so far, specifically with right now Trump saying that the European Union must drop the whiskey tax or face 200 tariffs on wine and champagne. As Donald Trump just announced on Truth Social, the European Union, one of the most hostile and abusive taxing and tariffing authorities in the world, which was formed for the sole purpose of taking advantage of the United States, has just put a nasty 50% tariff on whiskey. If this tariff is not removed immediately, the United States will shortly place a 200% tariff on all wines, champagnes, and alcoholic products coming out of France and other EU-represented countries. This will be great for the wine and champagne business in the United States, as of course we have back and forth trade war talks between a lot of countries in the world right now from the United States, which is creating just a little bit of economic instability there. Now, as we have a lot of European leaders talking a big game, barking a big bark, or bite not so much, as we have one of the European top defense ministers coming out and saying, we back Ukraine, but we're not going to really do anything about it except try to give them a loan. Essentially, that's what they're saying, as now Politico has released this article as the Europeans are saying, but they're attacking us. America, help. America, get involved. This is your fight. And America's like, not my problem. I don't know what you want me to do. I'm trying to end this conflict. You guys are, escalating it. As this article here reads, Russia is conducting state-sponsored terrorism against Europe, EU chief diplomat warns. And again, there's a lot of tensions, specifically between the United Kingdom and Russia, that have been escalating for quite a long time. And sadly, when we look at this entire situation, it is extremely unfortunate for everyone, because there's a lot of money that could be made. There's a lot of energy that could be traded. There's a lot of really incredible things that could be done in partnership, in peace. But sadly, there are invested interests in both sides that do not want that to happen. I'm not a fan of either side here of this larger proxy conflict that essentially just helps out the richest people in the world and screws over everyone else. But now we got crazy articles like this from the Wall Street Journal, how Europe's military stacks up against Russia without U.S. support. It would be a very tense fight here. But again, a lot of the Europeans are soy boys. A lot of the European population is desolate. It's deprived of masculinity and testosterone. A lot of them are leftist liberals that fight like this. That right? All right. Let's be real. All right. There's no like real kind of patriotic fervor in Europe. All right. It's all internationalism. It's all globalism. It's all liberalism. Okay. Let's be real with ourselves here. It would be a very difficult fight for the Europeans to mobilize, organize, especially with how disheveled and disorganized they are. So this would lead probably towards a larger escalation of tensions. And listen, This is my prediction. There probably will be a kind of ceasefire here. Probably we'll see how the Russian offenses kind of go here. We'll see how the gains that they have here. So far, it looks like they have the advantage here. But again, anything could change here. This is how crazy and dynamic the situation. At any moment, any other country could get involved here. Any moment, they could be like, yep, we're sending in our troops in there, which again is just absolutely crazy. But just like we saw with the absolute horrors of what just happened in Syria, that a lot of this stuff should be avoided at all freaking costs. We need peace here. The Russians haven't agreed to this peace deal. What will the United States and the Ukrainians now do with their kind of ultimatums and their red lines? Will there be a larger kind of acquiescing to their demands here? What will the Russians be giving up here in exchange for the possibility of peace? Well, I hope it's something significant. I expect the conflict to shortly escalate on some fronts, and then the ceasefire would be agreed to. And then there's going to be some kind of larger deal that, again, hopefully both sides lose out on, and hopefully both sides could go back home and say, okay, we won. I want both sides to just declare, even though it might be true or not be true, we won, both of them, just so they could stop, because this is insanity that we're being put on the precipice of. If you agree, share this video. Get a shirt, thebestpoliticalshirts.com. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys actively getting the shirts, subscribing, clicking the notification button. I got way more videos coming your way, all here on youtube.com/wearechange. See you there right now.